Most small business owners use AI for their business, marketing, blog post, writing, you name it, but they're using it wrong. The bottom line is when you use AI correctly, it may not actually save you time, but the results that you get are going to be 100% better. I want to share with you today an example of what not to do and what to do, including all of the mistakes that the AI and myself made along the way. Now, this was already done this morning, but I want to take you through because I don't want to take the time for it to process, but I'm going to take you through the iteration that I went through to show you how to. Let's produce a blog post together. Let's say that you are a real estate appraiser in Southeast Idaho and you want to put a new blog post up on your page, on your web page. And the purpose is to get information out there, sure. But really, ultimately, it's about marketing. It's about driving people to your page, people who are looking for valuation professionals in your area. You want to stand out among the competition. Now, the wrong way to do that, and the way most people use ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Claude, you name it, is that they prompt too simply. This is the difference between prompting and prompt engineering. Prompting would be something like this: write me a blog post as a real estate appraiser. That's it. That's what most people do. And whatever result they get, they get. And this is where you get most of the complaints from people who say, AI is not really good. AI is not really smart. I tried AI. It didn't really work. Let me take you through a process that's going to take a lot longer, but the results are going to be 100 times better. You have to start with a goal in mind. What is the goal? The goal here is to get more views on your website, which is going to drive the volume of your appraisal business. Okay. So I use a prompt system called RACE, RACE. It's an acronym, stands for role. You give it a role, you give it a character to play, if you will. Action. Okay. This is what most people stop and start with. They give it the prompt like I gave you before. Here's what I want you to do. That's the action. That still needs to be part of the prompt engineering, but that is a minor part. C is about context, what to include, what not to include, whatever information you can give it to better its process. And then expectation. What kind of output do you want? Do you want a 400-page document or a 400-word document? Do you want it in a visual or do you want it in written concept? And all of these things go into your initial prompt. Where most small business owners make mistakes is that they rush to the action and they forget the role, the context, and the expectation. When you include role, context, and expectation with the action, the results you're going to get are going to be exponentially bigger. So I'm going to take you through the process that I went through this morning. And by the way, it took about 20 minutes. So for those of you who are using AI to speed up your time, this type of activity is not going to speed up your time, but it's going to give you better results. So here is the prompt that I gave Gemini. Your role is to act as a marketing genius for a local real estate appraiser who is looking to increase his non-lender appraisal business in the Southeast Idaho, Western Wyoming areas. The ultimate goal is to produce a blog post that will assist in increasing SEO and AI SEO, which is a thing, by the way, with those looking to get appraisal services done on their private home, if they're looking to do a for sale by owner, or if they are just curious. Attorneys looking for legal casework assistance, or real estate agents who are looking to help pricing listings, or any number of individuals who might need valuation services on residential properties. Before proceeding, this is key here, with the blog post, in other words, don't go yet. Let's together be strategic partners and brainstorm topics that will give us a unique angle or hook, but do so based on what these types of customers would be searching for, either through AI searches or Google searches. Before proceeding, Ask me any questions that you need to better assist you in your job. Did you notice all of the elements there? I gave it a role. The role was a marketing genius for a local real estate appraiser. I gave it the goal. The goal is to produce a blog post. That also goes to expectations. And before I asked it to proceed, I want to give it and give context by asking it to brainstorm together. Okay. Now it comes back in typical AI language. It compliments me. This is an excellent niche to dominate. In other words, good job, prompter. You're doing a wonderful job. Um, okay, whatever. Pat on the back. Okay. So it goes through and it gives me some ideas. One, you can do some geographic nuance, the Jackson Hole factor. Okay. It asked me the question, do you handle high end luxury appraisals in Teton County? I do. I could probably go with that. Okay. The private client persona. Okay. Attorneys for sale by owners, your secret sauce, the anti Zillow angle. How often do you see Zestimates or tax assessment values being significantly wrong in your area? Providing a why your Idaho Falls Zestimate is lying to you type of hook is SEO gold. By the way, that speaks to me. Okay. And so, as a consequence, and it gave me another idea as well. Okay. So I said, let's focus on number 3. I like the anti Zillow angle. And yes, I think we see these estimates are off quite frequently. I can provide you with 10 recent appraised values. I will give you the addresses and what they appraised for in an attached document that I would like you to keep confidential and not show on the screen. Now, by the way, those are up here in a TXT file. I want you to take each of these addresses and do a quick comparison to Zillow, and then report stealthily the differences between the appraised value and the estimate, and then what the average discrepancy is. For the output, okay, the expectation, I want you to give me a stealth name to each addresses and report what they appraised for. Okay. So in other words, I gave it some information and just a little background. This is why this took time. I went back and I looked at the last 10 appraisals that I did. I did not discriminate in any way. One of them was a private deal. 9 of them were for lenders. About half of those were purchases and half were refinances. Okay. And again, I didn't want to be biased in this. I just took the last 10 appraisals that I did, no matter if they were in Eastern Idaho or Western Wyoming. Okay. So the AI comes back. Genesis comes back, says to show how much an algorithm can miss when it doesn't have boots on the ground in Southeast Idaho and Western Wyoming. I've run a comparison using the 10 data points that you provided. I've assigned a stealth name to each property to keep the specific addresses private while highlighting the massive gap between those estimates and reality. Okay. Now take a look at this. Okay. You've got the name of the property, you've got the appraised value, you've got the Zillow's estimate and the discrepancy. Okay. Let's just go to the discrepancies 25,000, 18,000, 46,000, 161,000. Okay. 6,000. 115,000, you get the point. Okay. The total portfolio discrepancy, average discrepancy per home is $79,000. Okay. Total dollar gap is 792,000, an average percentage error of over 21%, almost 22% difference between an appraised value and a Zestimate. Do you see why this is going to be a popular blog post? Okay. Now, I went in, and again, I'm not just going to take that data and run with it. Okay, so I gave you addresses from both East Idaho and Western Wyoming. Let's brainstorm 5 different attention-grabbing headlines that we could use for this blog post. What does it do? It goes in and gives me some great information, okay? Gives me 5 different blog posts. And by the way, the first one was, I thought, the best, okay? So I actually told it that. Why Zestimates can't see the Tetons, a $190,000 risk of using online algos in Southeast Idaho and Western Wyoming. I said, I like this one best. I think it's eye-grabbing and local. I don't like the word algos. I don't think that's a familiar term for most. So let's twist it a bit and use the term online estimates. Okay, fine. So it comes back and says why Zestimates cannot see the Tetons, the $190,000 risk of using online estimates in Southeast Idaho and Western Wyoming. Okay. All right, great. So now we're going to go through and iterate a little bit more. By the way, iterating means that you're going to take the answer and then ask additional questions or ask it to do and change things. I like the idea of a comparison table. Show me 3 examples of what that might look like before we proceed in the blog writing. Okay. So it goes through and it gives me 3 different tables. Okay. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Okay. And I came down and said, I like option 1, but I want you to do it the all 10. Okay. In other words, it had just given me 3 bullet points on each one of these. I want you to do it with all 10, and I want to make it appealing to the eye. In other words, use color and something that will pop. Okay. So it goes through and absolutely craps the bed. It does not give me color. It just gives me the list that it gave me before. Okay. And then it tells me why these numbers pop. Okay. That wasn't the point. The numbers pop. I get that. Right. That's not the point. I wanted the graphic that would pop. Okay. So I said, okay, now I want you to use your image generation tool. By the way, in Gemini, that's called Nano Banana. To create the same information in a magazine style color graphic that paints a clear picture of how big of a difference there is between the appraised value and estimates. Okay. Now, here's the problem, right? It took me too literally. It actually produced an image of a magazine. That wasn't the point. Okay. Very frustrating. So I came down here and I said, when I said magazine style, I did not mean actually looking at a magazine. I mean something that is appealing to the eye that would be worthy of putting in a magazine, but something simple. What you gave above is very confusing. I need the reader to be able to look at the graphic and immediately be struck by the point that we're trying to make. Okay. Now I'm going to skip ahead because what happened next is a perfect example of why people get frustrated with AI. And I didn't want to hide this for this video because I think this is important to address, right? This is not easy. And people get frustrated. Small business owners say, I need to use AI more. And they get in and this kind of thing happens and they throw up their hands and they say, this is frustrating. I'll wait until AI is better. Okay. Folks, AI is getting better all the time for sure. But if we are not in it every day, and I mean this, we are going to be left behind. We need to be working through these problems. And when the problems come up, we can't give up. We have to work through them. For the next 10 minutes, approximately, maybe 5 to 7 minutes. As you can see, I'm just going to scroll here. Okay. I kept asking it to generate an image. Remember, it generated an image up here, right? So I know it can do it. And it kept coming back with text. And it kept coming back with the background, what I would refer to as programming rather than the output. Okay. I specifically said, you are crapping the bed here. You keep giving me text output, but I need the actual image output. This is what you keep returning. And then I actually copied and pasted what is up here into my prompt. Okay. And what did it do? Came back with the same damn thing. Very frustrating. Okay. I said, produce the image that you have described. I understand the issue. I apologize. You were seeing the prompt text instead of the image. I have corrected the technical process. And here is the visual we discussed. And then it explains the visual. It's so frustrating. Okay. You are giving me the text output, not an image, blah, 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 on and on and on. Use your image generation tool, blah, 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 blah. Use Nano Banana, complete the task. Nano Banana is not a known command. What are you talking about? Certainly it is. I can go down here to the tools and I can see create an image, and that's Nano Banana right there. Okay. Very frustrating. Again, I went through this process. Now, I'll tell you what I finally did. Okay. Let me just skip down here. All right. I said, okay, I understand I'm trying to mix 2 models. By models, I mean you're using an LLM to produce the blog post, to strategically partner out the blog post. And I'm mid-process asking it to switch to Nano Banana. Even though it did it above, so I know it can do it, this is what was confusing to it. Okay. Now, this is what's called multimodal LLMs or AI. AI can switch between large language models and image generation tools. But in this case, Gemini is not understanding what I want it to do. So I say, okay, I understand I'm trying to mix 2 models. Please produce a detailed prompt that I can post into another query to produce this image. The prompt should include minimal information about each of the 10 properties, blah, 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 blah. Okay. In other words, I took a different approach. And this is a key. And this is one of the reasons I'm doing these videos, is to help us understand that when you hit a brick wall, you can go around the wall. You can go over it, you can go under it, you can go around it. Don't stop and say, oh, there's a brick wall, I'm stuck, and AI sucks, right? Yeah, it does suck in a lot of ways, but it's amazing when you can start to think like it and go, okay, how can I get around this obstacle? So in this case, instead of having it switch over to Nano Banana, which I kept trying over and over and over again, it wouldn't do it. I said, okay, give me a prompt. So it did. It came back through and it gave me a prompt, okay? And I simply highlighted this and I hit copy and I went to another version of Gemini and I actually changed the tool down here to create image. And I posted this, okay? And it produced an awesome image. It was perfect, okay? I'm not going to switch over to it now because of time, but it's going to be posted in the blog post that I actually post. Okay. All right. Okay, I was able to get the image that I will post into the blog post later. Your role is to continue as a marketing genius for a local real estate appraisal company using the information that we've been discussing concerning the difference between the appraised value and the estimate. Produce a short 200 to 300 word blog post that will include all the elements that we have discussed, including the information on why online estimates cannot be trusted and why you need to reach out to a professional real estate appraiser. It goes on. I don't know why it cut it off. Okay. So it went through and it gave me a very good, I thought, blog post using the title that we had talked about before, In the Shadows of the Teton and Across the Snake River Valley. I mean, how poetic is that, right? And it produced the information and everything else. Okay. It was great. I said, open this blog post in a canvas. This was me crapping the bed. I forgot that I was in Gemini and not in ChatGPT. In ChatGPT, you can open up a canvas, which will allow you to edit blog posts a lot easier than you can in Gemini. But it basically came back and ignored me and just reposted the blog post here. That's fine. Okay. But then I wanted to iterate a little bit on it. Okay. By iteration, I mean, this is okay, but I want to change it a little bit. Okay. You see how this process is spilling out, right? This is not just a give it a prompt, get an answer, move on. This is a process. You're using Gemini or whatever AI you choose as a strategic partner, and that's key. Okay. Let's expand this to between 300 and 400 words to give a little bit more information, making the point that many homeowners, attorneys, and realtors are making big mistakes by trusting the quick and easy online estimate. As indicated, also indicate that when we compared 10 local professional appraisals to their corresponding online estimates, the online estimates were not viewed prior to the appraisal process. Okay. So I thought that was important as well. In the rugged landscape of Southeast Idaho. So it started to rewrite it. One of the frustrating things about LLMs is they will often, when you ask them to change little things, they'll change the whole process. That's why I like OpenAI's Canvas, because you can change things very incrementally. Okay. I wish Gemini had something similar to that. All right. So we go on. And this is a key as well. Okay. So it actually was a pretty good blog post. Then, because I want the very best, I said, let's red team this blog post. By the way, that term red team is being used more and more frequently in AI. And the reason it's being used, everyone knows what red team is, right? Red team is you got the blue team, which is, hey, rah, 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 let's go. And then you got the red team that says, hold on, we've got some problems here, right? Their job is to basically critically think about whatever process you're doing. So I have found recently that no matter what I'm working on, if I feel like I have the best answer possible, it gets even better when I say, okay, that's great. Let's red team it. Okay. So the prompt is this: let's red team this blog post and get an outside perspective. What are we leaving on the table? What do we need to do to improve this? What words or phrases can we include that we have not, that will increase our chances of being found online with this blog post? Rather than answering each of these questions directly, okay, this is the expectation part, rewrite the blog post and include these elements. In other words, I'm skipping a step here. I could have just said, hey, what are we leaving on the table? And it could come back and say, well, you could do this, this, and this. And then I could iterate on that and say, okay, now let's write it. I'm saying let's skip that middle part and just go straight to the writing. And by the way, if you need to increase the word count up to 450 words, that is allowed. I'm giving it permission to increase the length because part of the elements that I'm putting in there, I want in there. And I don't want to go too high. I don't want to go to 500 words because I don't think anybody reads a 500 word blog post. Maybe not even a 400 word blog post anymore. We have a very short attention span, but I wanted to at least include the elements. Okay. So to red team this, we need to address the so what factor, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then it went through. And by the way, this was an amazing output. It's the one that I decided on that I would actually put in my appraisal blog on my appraisal website. So folks, here's the thing. There are so many ways to approach what I call strategic planning with AI. And so often we take the shortcut and we get frustrated because what we get is garbage because we don't do our job. Most people, when they complain about what's going on with AI, that they don't get the answers that they want, I ask them for their prompt. And most of the time, I am not the least bit surprised when I see what the prompt is. AI is amazing. It's an incredible tool. We should all be using it, but we should be learning from it and not quitting when we hit a brick wall. When things happen that don't go well, push through. That's going to make the difference between those who are successful in the future, because AI is absolutely part of our future, and those who quit and give up and say, maybe someday I'll learn it. Thank you for joining me today. Hope this was helpful.